Hello, everyone. I'm Carol Waller. I'm the Executive Director of the Type Directors Club, and I'm thrilled that you all could be with us today. Just for some announcements before we get started. We're very excited that our Type Drives Culture conference has just opened up registration yesterday, and the dates are March 4th and 5th. It's all virtual, and we do hope that you can join us. We have speakers from at least 20 countries. We're doing types, seeing walks, and it's very, very exciting, and we hope you can join us. And additionally, we have all of our speaker events that you can go online and take a look at. Just want to remind you that Kelsey Gray is doing a 3-hour workshop on February 4th, and our past president, Matteo Bologna, is doing his type design for 9 type designers. So we hope you join us. And now it's my pleasure to welcome our new managing director, the first time TVC's ever had one, and that's Ksenya Samarskaya. Ksenya, it's all yours.
Hi, thank you so much. Thanks, Carol, for the introduction, and thank you everyone for being here, listening to our conversation, and our lovely panelists and judges who will introduce themselves in a minute. Yeah, I am Ksenya or Ksenia, depending on if you're pronouncing it in Latin or in Cyrillic. And I'm a type designer, I'm a branding strategist and designer, and then I am here as one of the co-chairs of the type competition for last year, and then now also managing director. And I will hand it over to the panelists to briefly introduce themselves. All right, everyone's on stage. Kostas, you want to start it off?
Oh, I pressed the unmute first, I guess.
Exactly, that's how it happens.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kostas Bartsokas. I am a type designer from Greece. And currently I live in Greece. It's been a couple of years since I came back, just on time to be locked down for the past 2 years. And well, I'm happy to be here. I have I don't know, should I say more about my background or something? Or is that enough?
I think that's great. And we'll just do a quick round, and then we'll try to give plenty of space during the conversation to insert more. Anyone can take the mic. Kara, you want to jump in?
Sure. Hi, my name is Kara Gordon. I'm a typeface designer working at Commercial Type, and I'm here in Brooklyn, New York. My background is in editorial design. I worked at The Atlantic and then at Point 5. And I think that's about it for my professional history. Glad to be here.
Don't make me call in everyone. Daria, you're up.
Hello, now we are to the Berlin part, I guess. I'm a Russian type designer based in Berlin, working for Swiss Typefaces in a truly globalistic manner. Before that, I graduated from a type media course in The Hague and spent 5 years working at Lucas Fonts.
Okay, I go next. My name is Ulrike Rausch. I started out as a type designer in 2010, and I founded my own little type foundry called Cyrillic Font, specializing in handwritten fonts. And I'm based in Berlin, Germany.
Yeah, my name is Martin Majoor, and I started long time ago, like in the 1980s. So I was lucky to be one of the first to be in the digital type design thing, because before that there was no computers at all. So, and I'm still making type, and I love it to do it. And I'm here in Holland, so all the way from Holland, I say goodbye to you. No, I say hello to you. I'm not going yet.
You're around for a little while longer. So this year in the competition, we're trying to be much more explicit in terms of communicating what script expertise everyone has and kind of the background. So this is the Latin, Cyrillic, and Greek panel. So if everyone can say what scripts they work on, and if there's other scripts that they've drawn in addition to these. Martin, with you.
I'm also for Latin, although I have some experience with Cyrillic and also with Arabic, but this is so small that I don't trust to judge this. So Latin is the thing for me.
Latin, only Latin. I have dabbled in Cyrillic, but only under guidance of Ilya. So Latin for me.
I have experience in Cyrillic, Latin, and a little bit of Greek.
I work on both, on Latin, Greek, and Cyrillic, and I've done Arabic during my year in Reading while I was doing the masters in Reading. I have a long way to feel very comfortable with the script. It's tough.
I already answered. It's only in Latin, unfortunately. Yet.
Okay, so for our audience, so Latin, Greek, and Cyrillic often get grouped together. And for some of our audience that might not be as familiar, there's a little Venn diagram graphic coming up, or possibly up. There it is. So this is kind of the way that Latin and Cyrillic and Greek normally get kind of thrown together, where there is a lot of shape overlaps, there's a lot of shape history, and there's a lot of glyphs that have been borrowed from one to another. But I think this tends to be a simplification of the form. So I'm kind of interested from your experience for the people that have drawn throughout this diagram. What's your take in terms of like some of the letters that are included in both? Do you tend to copy them over? Do they feel different? What's some of the different mood and vibe things that are in the overlaps?
Well, I can say something about Cyrillic because I tried a long time ago in the 1980s to make a Cyrillic for a typeface I done. And all the Cyrillic speaking people who saw that, they were laughing at me because it was not the right way of translating my Latin characters into Cyrillic. So I know it's very difficult. It's not so simple. It's not, oh, we'll just take the shapes that look alike, the N is mirrored or whatever, and then you have Cyrillic. It's not like that, of course. So that's why I just said that I don't trust myself judging Cyrillic. I can judge the grayness of a text, or I can judge some details in shapes, but I cannot judge the overall Cyrillic and also not Greek. So that's why, of course, the Greek and the Cyrillic specialists are also in the jury.
Daria or Costas, do you guys have thoughts in terms of like how you normally see some of the overlaps cross over into Greek or Cyrillic, or how you've seen things used or misused?
I think it totally depends on the design. Sometimes it's enough to just copy all the shapes from Latin, but sometimes you have to give it a little bit of thought and maybe adjust widths or something in Cyrillic. I can only speak for Cyrillic certain. So there is no rules.
Well, I have to say that this diagram is interesting, but it's limited to the uppercase letters, which means that that solves like half of your problem you may have. And obviously, as Daria said, it depends on the design, especially when you're going to try Greek. If you go to any serif or like, let's say, older model, then something to pair a serif with, then you will have a really hard time figuring out how to play with the stress, which in most cases it may be like completely different from the Latin or the Cyrillic. I find that Cyrillic and Latin are closer than the Greek, and Greek is to both of them, and then you have to take the localized perhaps preferences that come in play, like very common one with the F the Cyrillic F and the Greek phi, which is the same letter, and the Bulgarian F, it may have to be bigger, wider, or like. So it takes a lot of time to develop confidence, especially when it comes to proportions and rhythm and figuring out how to pair stuff.
I actually have a question. Am I allowed to ask questions?
Absolutely. Take it away.
Because I am working on a Cyrillic font right now. And it's for clients in Russia, and they have all the different languages. But it was, I think that it was originally a typeface that Cyrillic and Latin were drawn together. And so in your experience, for those who do draw Cyrillic, do you tend to draw everything at the same time together so it's already harmonized and it's not like Cyrillic's not like a special add-on? And my understanding from like Masha at Contrast Foundry is that like just having that, like the Latin's not an afterthought because they're often sitting side by side as well. I would just love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, totally. It's often Cyrillic can help to figure out solve some problems with Latin. When you don't know which decision to pick for particular letters, you can test it on Cyrillic Greek if it has to be in your font, and then it might help you to abandon kill some of your darlings that won't work in other scripts. I use it a lot. I always draw Cyrillic, even if it's not requested.
And also, I just want to mention, like, as panelists are definitely welcome to jump in with questions, and we want to have this be a super open conversation. Same with anyone in the audience. Throw your questions into the chat or the Q&A, and then we'll weave them into our conversation here as well. Where do you guys?
I want to say one more thing about Cyrillic and Greek concerning the italic versions of that, because I'm not sure if italic was in the beginning invented or something for Cyrillic, and I think Greek was all the way a sort of italic. So how to work with that? Do you make from Greek and italic to and put it upright to make it into a Roman character? And with the Cyrillic, how do you make it in italic? Is it the same way as the Latin is? So these are questions I somehow never had, because I never made them really. But I'm always curious to see this combination of Roman and italic. Like Kostas said, the capitals is one story, but the lowercase is a whole other story. So that's a lot of things.
And then for handwriting, it's a completely different story, I think. So even in Latin, the letter shapes change so much when you write by hand. So I would be totally interested in taking a workshop in Cyrillic or even in Greek handwriting styles. That would be super cool. Do you offer that?
We can
very good point.
definitely make that happen. This might be the start. Have you are all of your fonts, Ulrike, just in Latin? Because you work specifically in handwriting, or
yes,
have you collaborated?
My fonts are only in Latin, but yeah, I would love to learn how to draw the letters in Cyrillic, for example, but it's much more complicated with handwriting style. So I don't have any experience in that. And I think you have to be a native in order to know all this specific stuff that goes on when you write fast with a hand. But Daria, I think you wanted to say something to that, right?
Yes, there is still a problem in Cyrillic where in Latin, italic goes along with handwriting, so it derived from that. In Cyrillic, italic, typographical italic and handwriting that you write at school, they're completely different. They're different shapes. And even type designers are still unsure what shape to use. For example, italic D in handwriting looks like a Latin G, lowercase g, and in typographical italic that you would make for a text font, it has a completely different shape. And there are wars about this shape, what it should be, and which one is the correct one. So it's a big story. It's a lot to learn. Very confusing.
I should mention that like most of the stuff that I'm doing for Cyrillic, like someone has already done the base shapes, like it's just an expansion. And I started out kerning and I was like, wait, there was this shape here in the Roman and this shape here in the italic. Where did these characters go? And then I like had to go down a whole hole of like, why is it like this?
I want to plug something, and it's not mine, but because I had the experience, Maria Dorli and Krista Radoeva, they do this great workshop on Cyrillic. And even if you never actually get to, to design your own fonts, just doing the workshop is a great experience, and you get exposed to a new script that you're unfamiliar with. And it may give you, I don't know, you may end up designing Cyrillic at the end. It's a great opportunity. I totally support.
Are there similar workshops on Greek?
Well, we have something in the works with Irini Vlahu, but because of COVID and some other personal difficulties that we had in the past 6 months, we haven't managed to kick it off, but we are looking at doing it sometime in the next year, hopefully. I don't know, fingers crossed.
I just put the name of the Cyrillicly workshop, just in case if anyone was curious.
And if any, Maria is in the audience today, and we do have like this after hour kind of talk where some of the people in the audience get to come up and join us on stage for a more private conversation. So if someone's a member, we will all get to continue talking and talk with Masha as well. Where else do you guys go to learn or to like keep improving or like keep expanding your knowledge?
From books.
Books.
You have a couple there.
Enough, too much. I don't buy books anymore because I have too much to still explore in my bookcase, because sometimes when you try to make a new typeface, you get inspired, of course, mostly from history in my case. And there's still a lot of things I have seen maybe, but after 20 years, I see them again and I think, hey, wow, that's interesting. And so it's a question of, that's the great thing about books. You take a book, you look at it, and you don't find what you want to find, but you see other things, you find other things that in the meantime in your mind are very interesting. And 20 years ago, I didn't look at it like that, but now I look different. And now suddenly this thing in this book is interesting for my development as a type designer, for thinking out new things and developments. So that's what I could say. I'm not much of a workshop goer, but more a workshop doer, conductor, how you call it.
I mean, I'm so lucky to be working for Christian Schwartz and Paul Barnes, having them as teachers. And I mean, also like the rest of my coworkers, Miguel, Greg, Tim, Thomas, like learning from each other and having, I mean, I miss having the studio space since we're working from home right now, and the library that we have at Commercial Type. But then also like we've collaborated a lot with St. Bride's and the books, to go back to Martin's, the many books that they have at St. Bride's Foundation. And I mean, here in the city, you've got the Lou Ballin Center, you've got the Columbia Library. a lot of resources in New York. We are spoiled for them.
Where else where do the rest of you go for inspiration? And also, like, what are you seeing what other typefaces or type styles do you think are needed or are missing from the landscape of current type availability?
Recently, I started to draw inspiration not from books, because all of my books are now in boxes in some other room. So now I look more around, and books or other typefaces are rather depressing. So I try to draw inspiration from movies, music, maybe some other. Now I'm more exposed to my shoes collection than to my books. And sometimes I see the resemblance, like, oh, this is a great curve. How can I achieve this curve in my typeface, or can I somehow? So recently my thoughts are all about shoes and the curves that are there.
Favorite brands, go.
But
What
do
are
we
your
need
favorite
more
brands,
shoes?
Daria? Like what shoes? What
Do
kind
we
of
need
shoes?
more shoes?
Oh, all possible shoes. They're all from vintage stores, so they were super expensive years ago. Like Salvatore Ferragamo is usually Italian. It's all Italian shoes.
Mhm.
They're good with
Sometimes
curves.
you get the question, do we need more typefaces? And then I always reply, well, do we need more shoes? And well, that answers the question then. So shoes is a good inspiration, I think, indeed.
Okay. I'll throw out the question of how have you seen the industry change since you first started out? We'll start with Martin, and then we can go around. Like, how has the industry like evolved?
Yeah, everybody knows the story that in the 80s we got Macintosh, and then everything started to change. And I said in the beginning I was in the lucky position that I was introduced to these computers in the beginning, because I started on the art school with making metal type or setting metal type, which was a great experience and still is very nice to do. And I think all the people who are in type, they should at least do something with metal or wood type. But yeah, everything has changed so dramatically in all these 30, 40 years. And I still try to catch up with all the developments, of course. I consider myself as a contemporary type designer, so but things are sometimes getting complicated for me very much. And maybe other people are more easy to do with, but for me it's sometimes quite difficult with variable type things and all the weights and all the coding, especially the coding in this software. I still am not really good in this, but well, that's it.
Yeah, I also see that in the last 12 years, the industry changed a lot due to tools that were getting better, because when I started, there was only FontLab, and it was like an old version that was not very intuitive, let's say. And with glyphs, I think it attracted much more people, so it kind of got more of a trend in the last years, which is of course means more competition. But then on the other hand, I also think it brought more attention to typography in general. So I think also design agencies also now have more broader understanding about type, or the existence about type, so that it's actually also totally okay to spend money on a typeface, and to let maybe also to ask a type designer to create a custom font. I think that was a couple of years ago, that was not super common. And so I think this trend also helped to make our industry to shine a light the job of a type designer. And also when it comes to Berlin, at least there moved so many type designers to Berlin in the last years, and so many new type designers out there that I see that like there's a Typo Stammtisch, like the gathering of type designers, and there are so many, like pre-COVID, there were so many workshops and so many events around type happening. So it's much more easier to have an access to type design and to new tools and to exchange new possibilities. So that changed a lot when I started. Like only explaining what I do for a living was like a 1 hour explanation, and now it's like, you're a type designer. Cool.
Well, I think the excellent thing is, I mean, this popularization / I don't know, democratization of the means, the digital means, like the software becoming cheaper and the information on how to make your first steps, even without taking a course or anything, are like freely available on the web, and the web is accessible in most places of the world. I'll go beyond the Latin landscape, and I say that this is great for all the other scripts. I didn't say the word, but all the other scripts, and that's excellent, because we need markets may not be there, but and obviously, you know, the market for Latin fonts might be like 90% of all the sales that are happening, but we need to see more people coming in and designing fonts for every script possible, you know, and that's the great outcome of that. That's a great change that is happening, I think, the past, I don't know, 10 years possibly, or less. And it would be great if I don't know, tools are also, there are open source tools, but even the paid ones, if there could be like different prices for some parts of the world that are not as economically affluent, and there are some possibilities for a better, even stronger, not stronger, more emphasized democratization of. So.
Well, democracy was founded in Greece, so.
Yeah, it's not practiced anymore. It is not practiced anymore in Greece. Let's not go there.
All right. Well, then, if we want to pivot, I'd love to hear your guys' different takes on like type technology and how that's changing, or how you guys fold that into your work. Like Ulrike, like what it takes to program some of the stuff that you're doing. So both what you're working with and also maybe what you're excited about or what you're looking forward to.
Yeah, so recently, like already 1.5 or 2 years almost ago, I started playing more with color font technology, and I'm very excited about that, even though it's still hard to work with that because it's not fully implemented yet in the software. But yeah, I'm totally excited, and I hope that also the support will get a little bit broader, so that more applications support that, and yeah, and also that more people use these new possibilities, not only color fonts, I mean also variable fonts. The format exists now already for, I don't know, 6 years, 5, I don't know, but you still see that very rarely, and so I think it's good to educate graphic designers in that regard, and to make them aware of what's possible. So yeah, at least I try to do that in talks, to show people, hey, you can do that with variable fonts, and you can do that with color fonts. And so yeah, before there's new technology coming up, I think we still have to tap the full potential of what's already possible, and make people use that more often, in order to give a little bit of pressure to the big players to give a broader support?
I haven't, so I'm like a pretty green type designer. I really only started designing type full time in 2018. I probably started playing with type design in like 2012-ish. I mean, but like the tools have just like, how do you make things faster? How can you get some of the annoying bits out of type design? So like we have a tool, like a kerning tool that my colleague Tim has built. And just, it's like little things like that. Like how can you use Python to make things more efficient, make things more democratic, more accessible. So I'm interested in those things, but I also really kind of just like to sit and draw. that just hasn't changed.
Do you have an audience in mind when you're drawing? How do you define that?
I work on a lot of client projects, so there's already like a very specific brief. In terms of like my personal projects, it's usually more of like what qualities I'm interested in. So like right now I'm really interested in softness. I'm really interested in how articulation of softness can happen underneath a really strong structure. And that comes from like my yoga practice. But like who wants to use those kinds of like soft, like a soft typeface? Well, that could be like, I don't know, it could be a pillow company. It could be a yoga company. It could be like I don't like to limit the audience necessarily and say it's for this user. Because people use type all the time in ways that it wasn't intended for and get really fantastic results. So I have this idea of more of like quality and like a character that I'm creating in terms of like if a typeface was a person, like the character of the typeface more so than the audience and who will become friends with the typeface and buy it.
All right, we're getting a stack of questions over from the audience, so we can switch and answer some of those. Okay, Craig is asking that in a saturated market such as Latin, do you find that marketing skills and investment is becoming more important than design skills?
Monotype certainly seems to think so.
What was the question?
Like, I think it's just about like in saturated markets like Latin, the balance of marketing skills to design skills, to type design skills. And maybe since we're also like talking judging a bunch of specimens, like what's the balance between the type design and the specimen? How are you guys thinking about that in terms of your own work? How do you place the emphasis and just communicate what the typeface is? I switched the question around. Apologies, Craig.
I also think, okay. I also think that specimens and the marketing are way more important now. When I started, I think my first typeface, I promoted that with a tweet, one tweet. And that was it. And then I instantly got this my phone's creative character thing going with one tweet. So, but now you have to make all this specimens, then you have to write a press release and send that to all the, I don't know, all the magazines and stuff. So you have to be quite aggressive now in order to get heard. That's a little bit a downer.
I like seeing people, type foundries, becoming more and more creative in the way they license their fonts. I think this is a new field where you can compete with other, that more and more get the idea that probably Cyrillic and Greek users should not pay double the price just because you made it, because it's been just infuriating for me the whole time. Now the baby steps, foundries start to accommodate this idea that just one price for all the scripts. And I'm glad to have that
We have another question about someone that's nervous about entering the competition. What advice can you give them, or what is the best way to stand out?
Well, I think that you, in the way of presenting it, I'm not sure if you have to thrive to stand out. I mean, the typeface itself will speak for itself. I mean, when I see a typeface badly presented, I still see the typeface and I can still judge it. I can still see the quality. So I wouldn't be too much afraid to send something because I have to make a whatever cool presentation. Of course, it has to be good and it's clear to the judges to look at it. But in the end, we will look through the quality of a typeface. That's in my case. That's the thing. I don't know how it's with the other judges.
I would say that you should think. You should try and show the strong what you believe your typeface does well. Okay, but I agree that, I mean, I want to see the typeface. I am going to judge the person as a type designer, not as a typographer, and whether they use the typeface correctly. I mean, at least that's how I want to approach this, because it makes more sense, you know. But a good use will always perhaps will help us in judging the typeface. So like the strong points of whatever it is you've made, make sure that they show.
I mean, can you be a good type designer?
What?
And I'm asking, can you make a good typeface? It's a good question. Like, can you make a good typeface and not understand good typography? Like, is that possible?
Yes, I mean, because you may
You
not
think
actually.
so?
Well, no, wait. You can. I mean, you may know you may not make something that is contemporary in your presentation. I was talking about the, let's say, the aspect of the graphic design of the submission, and not whether you are a good typographer, whether you know how to use curly quotes or like spaces or whatever, you know. No, that I assume that you know.
Right. Because I think like I very much think like, yeah, you can definitely not be a great graphic designer and a great type designer. Like that I get. But like in terms of like typography, how is your spacing? How are you setting, understanding how, when I think of typography, I also think like, do you understand what point size this works well at? Do you understand what leading this works best at? Grant, like Carter could space typefaces like no other. Like he gets away with a lot of little things in his drawings because it's just spaced so impeccably well. So I guess that was more what I was talking about then.
Yeah, my mistake. I shouldn't have used the word typographer. It was about graphic design. We're not like going to look at your graphic design skills, you know.
Yeah, right.
I would like to add one thing is about presenting typefaces when it's about display typeface. You can do a lot of things, of course, to present it. But when you have a text typeface, I would really want to see text. And I see a lot of competitions where there is a text typeface, but only a few words, but not a text. And that's, I think, very important to see a text.
Seeing it in context. Context is everything.
I think participating in a competition, preparing the PDFs or whatever you're sending would give a great kick to your design, even if you at the very last moment decide, oh no, I'm too shy, this font sucks, I won't send it. But having this thought process of seeing your font with judges' eyes, I think it's a great experience that you won't get from just staring at your proofs or specimens. So at least try to start participating.
Yes, and since you only have 2 days left, there's no time left to be nervous, but to get started. And if you don't win, it's not a problem. You can just retry next year. I mean, it took me, I think, 8 tries after I won an award. So
What's other people's experience been entering competitions?
I haven't.
You have a type foundry that does it for you. Yeah.
And also, like, I think it's worth asking what you're entering for. Like for some people, I think that these competitions are really fantastic and great, and there are a lot of reasons to enter a competition. I just personally have not, because like I don't feel like I own the typefaces I've worked on, or like there's like a lot of different reasons why I haven't entered. Money is definitely a factor. Like that can totally be a barrier to entry. But yeah, I've won 0 awards because I've tried to get 0 awards, to be clear.
So it looks like you might need some of that other advice of just go for it that we were giving to our audience.
Yeah.
Ulrike, I feel like you won like all of the awards last year with your latest font. What's your experience been with competitions?
yeah, last year I won 6 awards. But yeah, I entered like in the last years before, I entered like several times and never won anything. And then with this one typeface, I think it wanted to make up with all the tries before. So yeah, last year
I was on the panel for one of those. It was so good.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
The ADC. Got you.
Thank you.
No, it was also an interesting one because I was in a couple judges' rooms well, and in one of them it was a set of judges that were split between type designers and graphic designers, and the graphic designers initially were like, no, this is just like my grandma would write this with a ballpoint pen or whatever, like we don't need this, and all the type designers just kind of ran at it. We're like, no, that's the point. Like that's the magic. So it's definitely again like a reason for having the different eyes were like how you're looking at things as a graphic designer versus a type designer that's actually tried some of this stuff. Jump to one of the other questions. Do you ever see a script and get the feeling that it wasn't designed by an expert in that script? What triggers your spider sense?
I can easily say yes.
Me too.
For Greek, I've seen, and Cyrillic, I've seen. And perhaps for Greek, I've drawn when I was very younger. The first time I tried to do something. And after some years, I looked back at it. I realized a lot of things. But there are cases where, especially I see Greek, and it's like the question that jumps in my head is like, you have internet, you just had to type Greek script. That's all you needed to do. And it's sad because no one expects you to reinvent the wheel or something. But, when you're making, when you're making a me, make sure you have a descender in that U shape, just copy the U, or crazy shit. So, yeah.
Are there other things that are there certain glyphs or parts of the character set that you guys look at as like a quick way of like, okay, if they know how to handle this, then they can drive, they can pass the test?
Well, I can speak for German. We have this weird character like SZ, and it's often like just drawn as a B, which is not correct. So this is a quick stress test.
Yeah, but the uppercase
is so hard. It is so hard. I don't understand it.
But the uppercase German SZ is a whole different conversation because it's a new character, and yet there's still like such a big debate on how it should be drawn, even though it's a kind of like a made up glyph, right?
Yeah, it's
Let's not start this conversation. This is
yes, I know.
Yeah, but I think that when you look at some common characters, just the most common characters, they should be really steady and good, and how you say it, they must be really good. If there is a mistake, then, or a few mistakes, then it's already. So the most used characters are the most important, I think, to get it right. And the least used
Latin.
characters, and the least used characters, well, we don't use them so much, so you don't have much reference to judge this. But I think the most used are the most important.
This isn't Latin specific, but if I see an O spaced not symmetrically between two straights, that's a big no for me. If you didn't, like, you can have the most beautifully drawn glyphs, but if your spacing isn't correct, I'm like, all right, next.
Yeah, actually, I agree with you, Kara, that when you see, for me, like if I see a font and a typeface font, and I see a significant or sloppiness in stems and spacing that completely destroy the rhythm, then immediately it goes for an X. It's like, why? You don't like. And it may have great ideas, or like some letters might look amazing or something like that. Wow, that G, and then the rest of the typeface is like all falling apart.
Yeah, because then it doesn't work.
Yeah.
To me, in Cyrillic, it is most difficult still to get the widths right. So non-native designers already managed. I think they're one step before Greek. So they managed to Google what is Cyrillic and copy the details more or less correctly. But then you always have this feeling that something is not right. And this something is always the rhythm, the relation between the letters, the widths. And this is extremely difficult to judge and to do correctly, even for natives.
Can I say something on this, Daria? That my experience with drawing Cyrillic and having looked at thousands of designs from well-known designers, designers that I think are amongst the top who design Cyrillic, I have seen a lot of differences in how they approach proportions, and I think that there are at least two different schools in Russia for sure, and possibly 1/3 in Bulgaria, that approach things not in the same way, which as a non-native may complicate things when you're trying to understand the script by looking at existing work,
Totally. I think it's a problem that there are these two or maybe three schools that are competing, and not competing, but they all have their own truth. We don't have this in Latin because it's somehow you can read everything. It's so developed, and there are so many typefaces that you just read whatever fits to this particular design, even if it's strange. If it fits, then you'll read it. Whereas in Cyrillic, there is still a lot of like, no, you cannot do this shape because this and this person will not be able to read it, or these proportions are weird for this country and stuff like this. And this is still very much in work in progress, the whole Cyrillic script. But this is also the exciting part of it. I hope there will be more schools and opinions soon.
Same. We have a couple of votes for a question on how you would evaluate specific letter forms such as Bulgarian form of Cyrillics. Does anyone want to field that?
I don't know. I mean, I would say that you present it in a Bulgarian text along with all the other letters. I don't know, and then we'll see. I may not understand the question actually.
Yeah, I don't understand it either. It's just same as anything else.
Yeah.
And then we have 2 votes also for another question about judging multiscript systems and for when you have disagreements in the judges room, or if you have I think here was about like how much the scripts should adapt to each other, but I think maybe just give a little insight on what happens, the conversations that happens in the judging room as you're debating typefaces.
It's a very difficult question, of course, because when you make a Latin and a Cyrillic and a Greek script as one family, I cannot judge the Greek and the Cyrillic, only the Latin. And I wonder how the Greek and the Cyrillic people can judge the Latin when they are native Greek or Cyrillic speakers. But somehow we have to fight it out. And I remember I think that you can see a lot of things in another script which you are not native to, but a lot of things you can't. And well, it's good that we are not actually in one room then, probably, that we are doing this in a digital way, but otherwise we have to fight, I think.
I think it gets really complicated once you start adding like, how much does Arabic have to relate to the Latin or Indic scripts or CJK? I think that's when it starts. Like, I think the reason why we're all lumped together is that there are certain characteristics that will be shared across Cyrillic, Greek, and Latin, versus once you get towards some of those Eastern scripts, I mean, how much they should adapt. Like in some ways they just can't. They kind of have to be 2 flavors that go together nicely versus one, if that makes sense.
But a design does not have a typeface, doesn't have to be a unanimous decision, right, to be awarded. Is it?
No.
Kenya?
No, it's
So we may have disagreements. We may have disagreements on even Latin, playing Latin fonts.
I mean, I think it's the beauty of these panels is that we all come from very different perspectives, different amounts of experience. And so the idea of a one mind for the panel is just completely absurd because that would defeat the purpose.
right. Like there's no algorithm that can select a typeface as a winning one or not. And I know for me, like always, like the most exciting and interesting part has been being in the judges room and the conversations that take place. Like when people really get into debating, like that to me is so much of the value of, and I've learned so much from the rich conversations of all these people coming together. And so that's part of a little bit what we're doing and like trying to bring some of this in front of people in this open forum. But yeah, maybe it will also be interesting to do it. Find other ways to get some of these conversations to leak out, especially when we have typefaces and specifics that we're looking at. I think I'm supposed to transition this off to Carol for closing remarks now, but the panel will still be here. TDC members and some of the people, like there's some questions in the Q&A that were a little specific, but you're being brought into the after hour room, so stick around and we can get into those detailed questions, and then the questions that have been in the chat that are specific to formats and submissions, I would just say email TDC, DM us on Twitter and Instagram, and we'll get you sorted out that way. All right, Carol.
Hi, so this has been great. I've really enjoyed it. And for our non-members, thank you for joining us. Remember, the deadline has been extended to January 26th. You only have an extra 5 days. So take advantage of it. And we'd love to see your entries. And For our members, we're very excited. This is the second time we're doing this. We're going backstage. So I'm going to get to see all of you. I'm looking forward to it. It's been so long. And see you in a little while. And again, thank you, everyone. Stay well. That's the most important thing. God willing, we'll get to see you sometime maybe this year at one of the conferences, or maybe we'll virtual at our conference on March 4th and 5th. So again, stay well, everyone. Thank you so very much. And I'm going to see you guys in just a moment backstage. So thank you. Bye-bye.